From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen, and proudly welcoming you into this Tuesday's edition of For the People on December the 5th, 2017. For several days, I have been talking about a special broadcast for a special man. His name was Michael Funk, and a man who is remembered by so many people throughout the United States. But in Neenah, Wisconsin, they had a celebration of life get-together for a man who literally touched thousands of people's lives over his lifetime, still touching lives today. And we have his mother on the phone. And the reason we have his mother on the phone, I first just want to introduce Kay Reitz, who has been very instrumental, along with Steve Aredo at Eagle Nation Cycle up in Neenah, Wisconsin, to keep Michael Funk's legacy alive. You see, Michael Funk was shot to death during a hostage standoff that happened 2 years ago, and he should have never been shot. But let's say hello to the gang at Eagle Nation Cycle. Hi, guys.
Hey, Keith.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to have you, too. We're remembering Michael, and I just want to say hello to Phyllis. Phyllis, how are you?
I'm doing okay, and I thank you so much for having me.
You know, your son, the story we'll get into, and many people listening to the broadcast know the facts surrounding the case. There's a reason.
Yes, they do seem to, but there's one thing that I think has been missing for a long time until you folks came along, and that is the fact that neither DOJ nor Chief Wilkinson have ever acknowledged the fact that he has a mother, and he also has a younger brother named Greg, and he has an Uncle Dean. And none of us have ever heard from these people, and they've never acknowledged his death. They've never said they're sorry. We've never had a note, a telephone call, anything. And I think it's about time that they realize Mike had a very loving family that cared about him very much. He was my best friend.
And he was Steve's best friend. Steve, how long did you know Michael for?
Probably 25 years.
25-year friendship.
At least.
Now, for our audience, Kay or Steve, take us back and just give us a 2-minute bird's eye view. What happened 2 years ago there where you're seated at Eagle Nation? What happened?
Well, it was a typical Saturday morning, like any other. The shop was open, ready for business, repairing motorcycles. They had a skateboard parked down in the basement of the building, and Michael Funk was getting ready to get breakfast, as he did every Saturday morning for many, many kids that came down to play down in the skate park. And a crazed gunman came into the building holding Steve and Mike, Ryan Moterson, and Mike Peterson hostage. Steve was able to call the police and let them know that there was an active shooter in the building. And the police came. They stormed the building for 28 seconds, ran out, left the door open, and the shooter, Brian Flatoff, told Michael Funk to go close the door. And when Michael got to the door, he was being shot at by Brian Flatoff. As Michael exited the door, turned around, faced the door where the shots were coming from, and took 1 or 2 steps to his left to go through an opening between 2 buildings that would have taken him right over to his house. The police came around the corner of a building and shot at him 19 times. They hit him 7 times, and one of the officers said he was still moving, so I shot him 2 more times.
painful to hear that again. And I've heard the story so many times. You know, I've been up at Eagle Nation, I guess 2 or 3 times for some live broadcast up there. Do you have your computer on, Phyllis? Because I'm hearing some feedback on your end.
No, not at the moment. I don't.
Okay.
I'll try to get it a little bit better.
I don't know if you have me on a speakerphone.
When I go from room to room, it changes.
Do you have me on a speakerphone?
Now I do have. Hang on, I'm going to get that off.
Yeah, that's what it is. The speakerphone.
Yeah, it's off.
No speakerphone. Okay. This is live broadcast, so and Phyllis, you know, she's not on the air regularly. I bet you $1 million, Kay, that Phyllis Funk nor anybody that's a part of this broadcast today would ever wanted to have this national attention. But there's a reason why I'm a part of this, and that is the story of Michael Funk touched my heart, and it touched Kay's in a big way. Kay used to be the producer of this broadcast for many, many years when Chuck did the broadcast, and me and Kay teamed up, and you know the rest is history. And I couldn't think of a better thing to do with my time to help out with a case that it just seems that justice hasn't been done. Guys, what do you think about that?
We do appreciate this, Keith. It's very important to all of us, and I guess I can speak for Steve Arado and for Phyllis and Faye and Mike and everybody that's Tony Biegert, everybody that's included in our mission here, that we really do thank you and appreciate all that you do to help us get this word out. It really does mean a lot to us.
It's my pleasure. And I have to preface for our audience, because we do have law enforcement officials that listen to the broadcast, but the fact is, even though I like to say 99% of officers that wear the uniform are good, there is the element of bad.
I agree.
It's unfortunate, and it is become a problem, and especially focusing on the state of Wisconsin. You guys gave me some statistics. Tell me what they were. What did you find? How many shootings this year already in the great state of Wisconsin? It's kind of alarming.
Well, Keith, as of yesterday, there's been about approximately 23 shootings. There's been about 23
Police
killings, and the majority of them, about 19, have been clarified as justified. The other ones are pending.
Okay. That's a lot of shootings.
Unnecessary shootings.
Unnecessary. Well, that's your opinion. And, Steve, I would say that you would raise your hand and say you would agree, especially in the case of Michael Funk.
Keith, one of the last killings that just happened in Wisconsin a few weeks ago was of a 14-year-old Native American 8th grader that had a knife in his hand, and the police officer shot and killed him. Now, it's just getting way out of hand.
Wow. Now, I was under the impression that unless an officer thought that he was going to be killed, that they should aim for other parts of the torso, not to kill the individual.
Well, that's the big question that we have, is that's all part of our why and what and where and who. I mean, I was contacted by a lady who said that her husband flipped out. He was having mental problems, and she called the police, and she said, my husband's flipped out. He's running down the street naked. You need to go get him and take him to a mental hospital. Well, they went down there, and they shot him and killed him.
Yeah,
this is the stuff that we can't understand. Why is this happening? Why are they shooting and killing them?
Yeah, it's one thing to apprehend somebody, detain somebody, but to kill somebody, that's another story. Now, the organization that Kay just mentioned, Committee for Community Change, this is an organization, Kay's organization, Steve's organization, many people that are involved, including Phyllis Funk, and many others are going to be joining Committee for Community Change. Kay, I would anticipate as a result of this broadcast, you're going to be hearing from a lot of people across the country that have probably experienced something similar to the stories that we're about to hear, in addition to Michael Funk. But let's go back to everything to date right now about Michael Funk right now. Obviously, none of the officers have been suspended. As a matter of fact, the officer that actually shot Michael, what is he doing right now, and what is his name, Kay?
Hoffer, Craig Hoffer.
And what is he currently doing?
Craig Hoffer, well, let me back up a little bit here, Keith. When this incident took place, the chief of police instrumented a handout to over 300 officers and 6 of his honor team, where he awarded everybody with medals. The 6 officers, well, there was 5 officers that entered the building. I don't know who the 6th one that got the medal is, probably the chief. But they all got medals of commendation for a good job that they did.
Good job. Good job killing Michael.
These medals were ironically handed out on Michael Funk's birthday.
Yeah. Sad.
Yes, they were.
After this incident, Craig Hoffer was promoted to detective. He is now teaching police science out at the technical school.
Oh, boy. And he's got the Medal of Honor that he wears, a badge of honor, where he should have actually been demoted because he didn't follow instructions very well, and he doesn't listen very well. And if he was a member of his service, and he was in the Army or the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force, they would have kicked him out, and they wouldn't be giving him any pension or anything. But yet he still is able to walk the streets of Neenah, Wisconsin, and teach others the wrong way on how to kill people. This is very unusual. This is the kind of behavior that's getting people killed. And the training, if he's training, you better believe more citizens are going to die because of this idiot, Craig Hoffer.
You know, and it's really hard. We had there's a lot of children that were, always down here on Saturday mornings for the breakfast and the skating and stuff. And after this happened with Michael, even with Rhino's 5 children, Steve's children, it was very, very hard to try to tell these children to respect and to like police officers. They understood what happened.
Yeah.
These kids aren't dumb. They knew what happened. They saw it on the news. They were a big part of Michael's family. And it's really hard to turn around and tell these kids, don't be mad at the police for what they did to Uncle Mike. That's a horrible thing to try to deal with.
Here's the kicker. So the Neenah Police Department knew that they killed the wrong guy. And there was laughter shortly after Michael's death. Laughter. They laughed at him, where they were actually put a few more shots into him to make sure he was, in their words, good and dead.
Well, and the thing was, when Craig Hoffer called his wife and told her he got dinged in the helmet, but he was okay, and that he shot somebody, he told her it was like shooting a deer. Who does that? Who does
says that?
A police officer.
Absolutely.
They chalk it off to, and here's the insanity of the whole thing. The explanation for police officers is that they suffered some kind of, how do they say it, PTSD, post syndrome, or some syndrome where they're PTSD. Yeah, that's the syndrome that he suffers from. I can tell you the syndrome that he suffers from. It's an asshole syndrome.
Amen.
Keith,
I agree.
Me and Mike are both combat veterans. I never saw anyone do any of that in a combat situation ever. So I don't know how they can justify that for a police officer who killed who he knew was an innocent person and seemed to enjoy it and celebrate.
And they never apologized to Phyllis, to Greg, who's listening today on radio, to the family, to the friends, but yet they gave awards out to the officers that partaked in this vicious killing of an innocent man. It goes beyond. You can't understand it. It's so bizarre, and yet still 2 years later, not a single apology of sympathy because they shot the wrong person. Michael, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say this: Michael Funk did nothing wrong. Michael Funk did not have a history of violence. Michael Funk was actually a pillar in the community in Neenah. He did things for children. He had one of the biggest hearts you could ever have. He didn't ask for this. But